Hello, one and all. Welcome to the A to K Wrestling Show. Joining us today are comedians, writers, and creators of Clash of the Comics, Max and Ivan. Guys, thanks for being here. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you so much for having us. Great to be here.
Awesome. Nice to have you.
So we'll dive straight in if we could, and obviously you've brought us the wrestling, and now you've sort of, I suppose, rebranded to Clash of the Comics. So I just wondered, is this just a bit of a fresh coat of paint, as it were, or is there sort of a deeper meaning behind the name change?
Well, listen, in the time that you said that sentence, Chris Jericho has rebranded himself over 5 times. So I
Fair.
think, if the learning tree slash L, whatever he's called,
It's me.
and Ivan is in fact in his final rebrand. Chris Jericho is actually a tired dad living in North London. This is nobody saw it coming. That was one year too many for the Jericho. Yes, it's in the grand tradition of pro wrestling. You've got to freshen up every so often and change your gimmick. But over and above that, I suppose it marks the evolution of the show, which has sort of grown and grown in scope and complexity with every show that we've done, and has now finally broken out of its shackles of being in part of a comedy festival, and is now stomping around the world as an entity in its own right. So for years, you might go along to the show, and you might be at the Edinburgh Fringe, surrounded by comedians, and go, "Oh, are you going to go and see the wrestling?"
Or the Melbourne International Comedy Festival, surrounded by comedians.
Yes, and say you're going to go see the wrestling, or indeed Just for Laughs London, surrounded by comedians.
Yeah, these are the three comedy festivals that we've taken the show to.
Yeah, exactly. But contextually, it was called the wrestling, but there was a lot of kind of metadata around it. There's a lot of context there, and it wasn't a big leap and a jump for people to kind of understand what the show was. But out in the big wide world, calling a show simply the wrestling, and then having to sort of run up to them again. Yeah, but also there's actually a whole different thing. But I mean, it is a wrestling show. But listen, over the thing, and there are comedians involved. But we haven't put that in the title. So we just wanted to sum up what the show is in a way that we felt did justice to the experience and felt like the next stage forward.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense.
no, definitely. So, I mean, you guys built your careers as comedians, but Max, I believe there was a time when you were a professional wrestler known as Max Voltage. What decided
Human
to,
dynamo.
Yeah.
what decided to, make you blend stand-ups with suplexes?
Well, I mean, I loved and love wrestling very dearly, and I wanted to. I mean, I clearly couldn't let it go, but I also wanted to sort of pursue it or embrace it in a way that felt most positive. I remember, as you say, I began my career as Max Voltage, the Human Dynamo, in Portsmouth, my hometown, where there was a wrestling school called the FWA Academy, and I trained there alongside lots of great performers and lots of wrestlers who are still making waves to this day. But there were also lots of people, as with every wrestling school in the world, who didn't make it, didn't go the distance, and I saw them grow disillusioned with wrestling, or get pissed off, or just kind of, or flip the table over and go, do you know what? I never liked it anyway. I don't, whatever.
Not supposed to flip the table.
No, you're supposed to
go straight through
You're
it.
supposed to flip onto the table.
Yes,
That's
Where you were going wrong, I think.
exactly. As happened to Phil Wang at our last show. God bless the man. But yeah, I knew that I'd always loved performance and writing and comedy, and that was always a part of who I was, even before wrestling. And so I wanted to try and kind of embrace both things as soon as I could. I went off to university because I knew that was felt to me like the most sensible way to pursue comedy and writing and performance, which was my other love. And then when I when I very entrepreneurially ran a pro wrestling show at my student union, which was attended entirely by posh, pissed Surrey students who hadn't got a clue what wrestling was, but bloody loved it, and kind of fell into this. I hadn't thought about it, but I was delivering wrestling, an art form I love and believe is one of the great performance art forms of the world, to a non-wrestling audience. And as I'd hoped and thought that would happen, it connected with them. I'd carefully booked the wrestlers and the workers that I was working with at the time, who I felt were best able to kind of transmit the magic of what a wrestling show could be. I'd structured a little series of angles, just to very, very simply to make it an accessible show with a beginning, middle, and end. And the atmosphere was feral. And
I was there.
Ivan was there.
It was epic. The only thing I can really remember is there was a man with a pig's head.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. So that was feral.
That was feral. That man
In the audience?
Well,
no.
that man's name was Shah Samuels, and Shah, great wrestler, was like, yeah, man, I'll do your show. I'm doing a bit of a butcher gimmick actually, and I was like, oh, okay. He was like, oh, bring my pig's head, yeah, and I was like, yeah, sure, Shah. Shah, as people may or may not know, has in the past worked as a legitimate East End butcher, and brought what I believe was a genuine pig's head.
It looked real.
Yeah.
You know what? Oddly, and I didn't think it would be a question, but I was going to say, was it a genuine pig's head? So
probably not the worst smelling thing in the locker room either.
No. As far as I know, it was. I have no idea why he chose to do said gimmick. It was baffling, and I had personally suppressed that memory. But
the audience loved it.
Yeah, I mean, Shah's a great wrestler. I'd go as far as to say he doesn't need to bring the pig's head with him, which he is perhaps.
We actually, after that show, me and some of the other uni friends went to see you in a couple of other like small town halls.
Yeah.
Which was a blast. Going in like 3:30 in the afternoon to
Orpington.
Yeah.
Absolutely, or Broxbourne, 100%.
Watching the high flyer Max Voltage.
Yeah, but it kind of it sort of planted a seed. I think I maybe did 2 shows at university, possibly 3, but at the same time, Ivan and I were sneaking off to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and performing comedy together, and this became, the degree itself, as is always the way, it becomes very incidental, and it's all about the other experiences that you have along the way. And suddenly we're this is what we're doing. We're in this sort of whirlwind of comedy nonsense, and it's exciting and it's exhausting and it's kind of all consuming. But at the back of my head, there was this sort of tingling thing of like, wouldn't it be fun to do a version of what I did at university, but bigger, combine comedy and wrestling, and basically at the first available opportunity, that's what we did. Ivan drunkenly chatted up the programmer at the Pleasance, which is one of the great Edinburgh venues, and all credit to Ryan, who is a wrestling fan. He just said yes.
That year we were booked in for the Pleasance is one of the venues in Edinburgh, which has lots of other little rooms and bigger rooms as well. And it was our first year there. And we were in their smallest room in the cellar, which had maybe a capacity of about 35, I want to say.
Yeah.
But then we also managed to book one night in their biggest room in the Pleasance Grand, which had a capacity of about 800.
Yeah.
And so every night, or afternoon, because the show was in the afternoon, we did our like 1 hour show, and then in front of 30 people, or 35 on some days.
We were, not to brag, but those 3 benches were full every day.
But we would do this earnest speech at the end saying, please, if you're still here in 2 weeks' time, which is not the way it works. Everyone comes up in just a couple of days and then goes, please come to this show that we're going to put on in the biggest room.
Yeah. So we got lots of people going, well, good luck, because clearly I'm not staying in Edinburgh for 2 weeks, you lunatics. But yeah, it was a sort of dissonant to an Edinburgh of 2 halves. But we the show sold out on the day, and it
awesome.
Was absolute chaos. We'd had to sort of pull every kind of string and kind of convince so many people, like in lots of ways, despite the fact that it's never been easy to put the show together, that was the biggest leap of faith that everyone had to take, because we had to go around. I had to just sort of sit with loads of comedians one-on-one and be like, I'm not mad, but you just have to believe me. Like, I had no proof of concept at all. I just talked to them very passionately and animatedly about why this is something I loved, and it happened to be something I had a level of expertise in, and would they kind of join us on this journey. And similarly to a load of wrestlers, to, you know, phoning up Johnny Moss and explaining that no, the comedians aren't, they're not taking the piss out of wrestling. They're stepping into your world. That we're fusing these worlds, and they want to be, you know, for one night only, they will become wrestlers. And Pac, who had just wrestled for Dragon Gate that year, and I'd wrestled a number of times and was a good friend, and he was like, "Yeah, like, are you sure?" I was like, "Honestly, man, like it'll be worth it." And Doug, who came back a couple of years later, Doug Williams, one of the all-time Mount Rushmore British wrestlers, wrestlers full stop, frankly. Yeah, this fusing of worlds the first time round was quite the journey. And Ivan and I had been awake for about 3 days when the show itself started. Our friend Mike, who did lots of the video editing, maintains that he has back problems to this day just from being hunched over in our flat in Edinburgh, like editing videos on his like wheezing 2011 laptop. I mean, we like looked like absolute hell on the day, and so much halfway through, Ryan, the head of the Pleasance, ran in and went, "Johnny Moss has just thrown a chair and it's broken a 20 grand projector, and you're gonna have to pay for it." And this was halfway through the show, and I was like, "I just don't have time for this, man. Like, why are you telling me now?" And then he came back later, was like, "The projector's somehow fine." And I was like, "Great! I wish I just hadn't known about any of this."
Keeping you on your toes.
There was a moment in the show when, I mean, I think the first match was just wrestler v wrestler. It was,
I believe so.
It was us explaining to the audience, this is what you're going to see.
Yeah.
And then we kind of started to drip feed in comedians wrestling as well.
I believe it was Mark Haskins versus Tango Tim Wiley.
Well, there you go.
Or Tim the Terminator Wiley, as his gimmick was on that occasion. Managed by Jess Ransom, who was a sort of playing like a Russian agent.
After winning Jess
Ransom of Horrible Histories, who we love and adore, who directed our show that year. Tim the Terminator Wiley was a sort of robotic Russian secret agent whose pecs she controlled with a remote control. And she controlled them with great vigor.
Layered storytelling, indeed.
There was a point halfway through that show when it was a tag team match, and two comedians suddenly found themselves face to face, and it was electric. The audience suddenly realized, oh, this is happening. It's comedian v comedian. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
And well, look, no offense to Humphrey Carr, who's now managing Wrexham FC or something like that. He's their general manager. And who else? Who was it? Humphrey versus Colin Holt.
It might have been Colin Holt. Yeah. Star of Afterlife and many other great shows.
I
feel like you're about to slate.
It wasn't great. But that's because
slander.
Max had 1.5 hour session to train them, not in a wrestling ring.
nor were they together.
Yes.
I trained Humphrey Carr for 30 minutes in the Third Space gym in Soho, which in the grapple zone.
Well, there you go. Yeah, you were in the grapple zone at the very least.
Look.
But since then, now the comedians know exactly what they're getting in for. They want to do as much as possible. And, you know, comedians they can be a bit vain and they want to show off. So they put in the hours. And in the last show, I would say, like, Abby Clark, people thought was a straight up pro wrestler.
Yeah,
they didn't realize she was a comedian.
We're getting to the point where the lines are blurring and it's hard to tell who's who, which is glorious.
Well, that's going to be overrun with comedians. They've already got the promo ability. They add the wrestling to it.
It blends so well, doesn't it? So, Ivan, obviously, we know of Max's former wrestling days. I just wanted to ask, you know, were you into wrestling, or is this something you sort of, you know, dived into head first, with the creation of the show?
Please don't judge me, but wrestling wasn't on my radar. I was making it with the band, actually.
Nice.
And you boys are from Liverpool?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you probably know Voodoo 7-2. We gigged around the Zanzibar, the Barfly, Magna, you know, those haunts. You were probably at some of those gigs.
Ivan, please.
Without a doubt,
Yeah, front row.
What have I said? Do not derail our interviews by trying to bring up Voodoo 72.
Come on,
your art rock punk funk band.
we can connect this. You know, have you considered, as Voodoo 72 consider doing any theme music or anything for the show? Or?
Absolutely. I would be well up for it, but
the rest of the band have stopped responding to Ivan's drunken firing up the old group chat and getting the boys back together.
Yeah, so no, wrestling wasn't really something I grew up with. I kind of was vaguely aware of it, but yeah, no, trying to make it in the band and failing making it in the band was my main passion.
Which is another like time-honored teenage obsession.
100%.
You know, for many people. Yeah. For many people, wrestling and they're almost two paths that you can take. You could go making it in the band, or bouncing around a wrestling ring, or just becoming obsessed.
And when we started off performing comedy together and driving up and down the length and breadth of the UK, Max was saying how similar all of our experiences in stand-up comedy were to wrestling as well.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the actual wrestling show might be different, although we have performed in front of some fairly feral audiences.
Yeah.
But those like long drives, service station, stop-offs, kind of going over your performance.
Yeah, performing, it's so similar. Are you a headliner? Are you opening? You're performing, if you're on the undercard, you might not be getting paid. If you're up top, or you get to rub shoulders, you hop in a car and you might meet someone who's higher up the card with you and you get to spend time with them. You perform for, between 10 minutes to half an hour, and then you kind of dissect that performance on the way back very unhealthily in your head as you head back home, and then you eat a burger at 3 a.m. You get home, sleep for 2 hours, return to your day job. Like, there was basically zero change between my wrestling existence and my comedy existence.
I must admit, until you said it, I didn't realize just how much that connects.
Kindred spirit.
Yeah, I didn't even think that like the comedy circuit had a mid card, but it makes a lot of sense.
yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, like, to get deeply pretentious for a second, like that. Part of the reason I wanted to connect the worlds of comedy and wrestling is because they are the two art forms whereby the crowd is an active participant in the work that's being made, right? Like, a good comedian will ride the energy of a crowd one way. A good wrestler will do exactly the same thing. And as a result, when wrestlers and comedians meet one another, they have basically 100% hit rate of just becoming fast friends, completely understanding what the other person does. You two live out of a suitcase, travel around, you perform your thing. You've got your thing that you do, which is slightly different to what everyone else does, but you exist within that ecosystem. And it kind of, it's a joy to see these people, to connect individuals who have no right to know of the other's existence, but then we bring them together and it's a beautiful thing.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I never even made that connection. So obviously Clash of the Comics is going to emanate from the Apollo, this time. How much are you looking forward to bringing the absolute chaos to such an iconic venue?
It is unbelievably exciting. We went to do a recce and just stood on the stage and looked around, and it there's a reason it is very, very arguably the UK's most iconic comedy venue. It is a beautiful stage. It's stunning. The sightlines are incredible. It's completely gorgeous. It's huge, but it feels intimate as well. It's unbelievable. We've had the privilege of seeing friends perform full tour shows on that stage. We performed a very short set on there years ago, near the start of our careers, as part of a cabaret evening. But it's amazing to be back, with a fully fledged, all guns blazing iteration of the show in its biggest outing yet. Couldn't be more excited.
We always try to make the show as big and exciting as possible. When we took the show to a different venue in Edinburgh, and we were speaking to the tech team there, Max, as is his first question whenever visiting a venue, is, can there be a zip line here? And
that was my first question when you asked about this interview. I did say,
can we zip line into the zoo?
Chance of zip lining in. It's just good to know. It's just good to know.
And with that venue, yes, we could have a zip line.
They finally said yes. This is why you got to keep asking the question, man.
So we had a zip line. So we're not going to give away anything that's going to happen in the Apollo, but we'll definitely be pushing the boundaries, both what's physically possible and what's financially possible. We don't take any money from this show because we always put it into stupid zip lines that take 10 seconds, but cost quite a lot.
I'd do it all again in a heartbeat.
Well, I love it. That's the message, isn't it? You got to ask, is there going to be a zip line? That's fair.
I mean, I think, unfortunately, Evan's really said it.
Could that be a t-shirt? Is there going to be a zip line?
I don't want people to, I don't want anyone to ever come to one of our shows and be disappointed. So for the avoidance of doubt, I have to actually clarify there will not be a zip line.
Oh, very true. Yeah.
We've
done a zip line.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a bit misleading.
The Apollo can't do zip lines.
Yeah, no, they said that
they said that Britain's Got Talent wanted to do zip lines, and they couldn't afford it.
They were like, Anton Deck really wanted a zip line, but they looked into it and it just wasn't feasible. And I was like, okay, fair play. But what I will say is we've got things up our sleeve that are better than even a zip line.
You know it.
Yeah. It sounds like you did the zip line before Anton Deck. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. In the double act state, it's Max and Ivan 1, Anton Deck, all other points since the dawn of existence.
But you're on the scoreboard. That's okay.
They've even got the music.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Oh yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Damn it. So I know you touched on this a little bit before, but obviously you have a great lineup of comedians as well as yourselves, and we have the likes of Nish Kumar, James Acaster, Ailing B, and Greg James, just to name a few. And obviously you talked about sort of, I suppose, having to sort of explain the concept and sort of talk them into it. But I just wondered, is it a difficult sell for comedians, or do you have any who maybe sort of, once they've done a bit of training or once they've looked at it a bit and gone, actually, no, this isn't for me? Or
well, I would say that it has become, it's always a gigantic, sprawling, convoluted beast to sort of pull together, and it has a really incredible way of just absorbing all kind of free time and energy around it, but then at the same time it like gives an incredible amount of energy. So it's a absolute kind of machine, and it's sort of hypnotizing to experience it as it grows. The good thing is now there is a great deal of there are plenty of comedians, plenty of people in the world who obviously have no concept of the show, never heard of it, but even for them we can sit and go, would you like to be a part of the show? It's a bit like this, it's a bit like this, it's a bit like this, and it's a bit like this, and they can look at it and immediately experience a fraction of what it was like. And on the plus side, I mean, one of the things that we take great care to do is present comedians with an experience that's incredibly enjoyable, because we ask a huge amount of their time, really, especially when you consider how busy people are, especially when you consider that lots of the shows have happened in Edinburgh, which is the kind of epicenter of lots of comedians like years. So that their training is taking place whilst they're putting together an Edinburgh show. Ivan and I have written about 2 billion Edinburgh shows. It never gets any less stressful as you're in that kind of build up to August, which is where you're about to probably premiere a show for the first time. It's an hour-long thing. So they're traveling around the country. They're performing constantly. Lots of them have TV gigs or radio shows or a combination of other kind of commitments. And at the same time, you're going, just, would you mind meeting us in a wrestling school?
In Southeast London.
Fabulous wrestling school called Play Fight. We love Tom and Claire and the Play Fight team very much. Would you care to meet us in Woolwich at 10 a.m., which for comedians is like 5 a.m., and learn a series of highly physical things that may be totally alien to you. But yeah, the point and the aim is always to ensure that they get an experience which is genuinely kind of transcendental and something. It's just something they can't get anywhere else. So if they say yes, we want them to want to do it, and we want them to enjoy it, and that's the spirit in which we kind of embark on every element of the show. Really,
we've definitely had people say not my cup of tea, not for me, but never once they start training. If anything, it's the complete opposite. Once they start, they get that buzz. They want to. They
I'm
suddenly.
curious now. Like, have you ever had to calm anyone down and they're like, I want to do a Canadian destroyer, and you're like, let's maybe not.
Plenty. Yeah. You get some very, very hyped up comedians who are up for absolutely anything, and then no, it's a very it's an addictive world once you start bouncing around.
The greatest surprise for us is when somebody comes in and says, "Oh, I'm not too sure, I'm not very athletic or whatever." Angelos Epithemiou kept talking about Dan Skinner, who plays Angelos Epithemiou, kept talking about his bad back, and he was like, "Oh, boys, I'm not really sure, And then we started to teach how to bump, and he was just like, bam, straight in.
The man is a Green Beret Marine. Right? He is absolutely flawless. Yeah. Some are dark horses like Mike Wozniak was very sort of low key and under the radar, but the man could win the CrossFit Games tomorrow. I swear to you, he was just completely elite. He did absolutely everything.
Flew through the
ropes. We've had many comedians fly through the ropes. Jeff Costa-Q gave an incredible tope, and she's a sort of power lifter, and she brought that to bear on her work. Aisling got gorilla press to the outside. It's always incredibly exciting to work with the comics as they develop and train and then see them in action on the day.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. You obviously got some great wrestlers as well set up here. Some of Progress Wrestling's finest. I think Simon Miller, Cara Noir. How's it feel, getting some of the best of British wrestling talent on the show?
Well, we're very grateful to Simon. Simon, of course, burst through the curtain at exactly the right moment. We're in a spot of bother. We arrived at Progress with the intention of stepping into a wrestling ring in order to unveil our new belt as part of the transformation of Clash of the Comics. It felt only right to do so in a wrestling ring because it is a wrestling show. And then as we were poised to deliver the belt to Phil Wang, who was our reigning champion at the wrestling,
before he could even touch the belt.
Yeah. Ed the Gambler Gamble broke it invaded the ring, talked a whole lot of trash about Phil, and then with the help
and the good people of Progress.
And the good people of the Electric Ballroom. He had some very, very unkind words for them. But it wasn't just Ed. As you say, it was Bullit who was returning to Progress after an absence of about 2 years, I think. So it appears that Ed has inveigled Bullit along to join his sort of stable. But before too much damage could be done to Phil Wang, who hasn't been in training recently, so it was very unfair. Simon Miller stormed the ring, so it appears we'll see more from both men on the night.
Interesting,
intriguing. So obviously James Acaster, he's looking to put an end to a multi-year losing streak. When will we? So when will we know what's in store for him, and how do you like his chances of finally getting a victory?
Well, I think James is going to clarify before too long exactly what his plans are on the night. But we do know that he's planning on stepping into the ring and wrestling, and we do know that we've witnessed firsthand a fairly unfortunate. I think it goes beyond a losing streak. Not only has James not yet won a match, he's been in the unfortunate situation of never having once delivered a single offensive maneuver.
Yeah. Or defensive maneuver.
Or defensive maneuver. He would have really benefited from some of those. He could have got his hand up at the very least. He would have been less heavily concussed when struck around the face with the weapon. Yeah, James he's got a rich history of delivering fairly spectacular entrances to the ring, which he embarks on with lots of vigor and brio and kind of enthusiasm. However, he does then tend to get immediately KO'd, knocked senseless, sent flying, battered in some way, shape, or form. That's happened in the ring. It's happened out of the ring during the period when the wrestling championship was up for grabs 24/7, and he attempted to win it and got KO'd there before he could do anything. It's
I forgot about that one.
Yeah. He was due to wrestle in London, then got KO'd backstage and locked in a flight case. It hasn't been a great run of luck for James. But listen, this is the Hammersmith Apollo. This is Clash of the Comics, and it's debut outing in this form. And Acaster, he's fired up. He's going to be there on the night. He's ready to wrestle. I'm keen to see what he has in store.
Yeah, hopefully some kind of maneuver.
We have to hope. I will say I've not seen him at Play Fight once, so I don't know
He
where.
must be training elsewhere.
There are other schools. There are other schools.
Yeah,
available.
yeah.
Play Fight,
see,
official
yeah.
training partner of Clash of the Comics, but I've not seen him. It does make me worry slightly.
He's confident. Like I say, he's
He's
very confident.
He's really confident.
And he'll be releasing something soon about what he's got planned.
Official statement from James Acaster coming soon.
Yeah.
That much we know.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see what that is. You kind of touched on it before. Other than lack of zip lines, putting together a wrestling show is no small task. Something that's so different combining wrestling with stand-up comedy. What have been some of the kind of hardest parts of pulling the show together?
I think we probably jumped ahead. Getting it out of my pure imagination and into the world took a series of things. It took a thumbs up from a venue willing to take a chance on us, and then it took a series of thumbs up from performers of all stripes willing to take a similar chance. And then once you're over that kind of initial hurdle, it just becomes the most insane project management feat of all time as you kind of coordinate a whole group of very, very talented people, but often from totally different worlds, learning each other's vocabulary and kind of stepping into this beautiful shared hybrid world. But it's sometimes, there are things sometimes backstage, like we've worked with brilliant stage managers who are calling the show. A friend of ours is now one of the most in-demand stage managers in the West End. But calling a wrestling show is just a different universe. And for someone who doesn't know the shorthand of, well, it'll be their entrance. Well, you'll know when the music cuts because they'll probably want to cut a promo. And by the way, a promo is a thing with a microphone. And also when they've got the microphone, it's just things that, people who are steeped in the world of wrestling just, won't write down. They'll just go, you're out, this happens. But that, the whole point of the show is that we want everyone to feel in a way everyone's out of their element, but in a way everyone's in their element. We want to the latter is what we want to lean into. We want everyone to feel incredibly confident and comfortable with what they're doing on this occasion. And kind of there is a way of doing that, but it just involves loads and loads and loads of work. And that's what we do.
It's just 6 months of stress for us, but one glorious night, baby.
One night.
Love it.
So you've obviously you've already touched on the similarities between the world of comedy and the world of wrestling. A lot in terms of the lifestyle, but obviously they both thrive on storytelling and, as you mentioned, crowd reaction. So I just wanted to ask, sort of, what have been some of your favorite sort of audience reactions or moments from the past shows?
Great question. For many years, there was Andrew Maxwell was a wonderful commentator for a number of our shows. He tended to side with the baby faces.
I guess before you go into that, a big difference between our show and a normal wrestling show is that the commentary is piped out live to the audience. So it's not the commentators aren't there for the people watching at home. So the commentators are feeding off the audience are feeding off the commentators, and then what's happening in the ring is feeding off what's happening in the commentary as well.
There's another layer. And our two commentators that year, who were Brendan Burns, who seemed very drawn to the heels out there, and Andrew Maxwell, who had a deep affinity with his gimlet-eyed Irish charm for the good guys. And Brendan announced that he was there on the night to endorse intolerance and bigotry. And Andrew said that, on the contrary, he was there for fair play and decency. And he started getting a chant going. And to all of our astonishment, fair play, decency began ringing out as a chant in the sold-out Pleasance Grand as everyone endorsed it. And it was glorious.
And it became a runner.
Fair play, decency for many years. It was a kind of leitmotif. It was the theme of the show. I think I will also never forget the second that people filtered into the ground for the first time we'd ever done the show. As I say, completely delirious with lack of sleep. Some wrestlers had arrived in Edinburgh, with an hour to spare, and they were just there. It was all just happening by the skin of our teeth. People were being let in. We were running at least half an hour late, but it was all just about happening. And the videos, which Mike had injured his back editing because he's a little wimp, had just about been uploaded onto the software and had just about been played out. And the audience just started reacting to it. They started listening to what was happening. They started laughing along. They started getting excited. And as the intro video began, and there was this ooh that kind of rippled around the Pleasance ground, the lights went down. And then the theme tune that we used to open the show with was Enter Sandman. And we had this edited together video with footage of some of our comedians who'd been training. So people started to see that, wait a second, there were comedians and they were actually in a ring and they were looking at this wrestling ring and they were getting excited and there was smoke in the room and they could see the comics on the screen and Enter Sandman was building and this clapping just started. And I remember Mark Watson, who was stood backstage as a manager, was just going, this is unbelievable. This is what it's all about. And like the adrenaline was...
Mark Watson, who turned up on the day because we had someone drop out.
Yeah,
and he just
exactly.
rocked up and was like, let's do this.
It was pure Edinburgh. We needed a manager. Someone was like, Watson's in. We're like, of course he is. I think I met him for the first time there and then. He was like, this is great. Like my adrenaline was like spiking through the roof. Enter Sandman was just building to a crescendo. Some pyro happened that our like brilliant like production designer just chucked in, probably against the advice of all budgets in the world. Then kicked off. It was just this kind of gladiatorial combat arena thing. And we were like, we may just about have a show here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Enter Sandman as well. Banger of a tune.
Great choice.
Oh yeah.
So obviously, one of the best thing about wrestling is surprises. Sometimes you get like an unannounced name that shows up and obviously blows people's minds. Can we expect any maybe surprises, whether that's comedians or wrestlers at the show?
Absolutely.
Anything can happen at Clash of the Comics, guys. That is all we'll say.
At the last one, a surprise for all of us on the night was Rosie Jones going backstage, announcing that she was willing to challenge anyone. And lo and behold, her challenger was Greg Davies, the Taskmaster himself.
Yeah.
Who then, when they were in the ring together, Rosie defeated him.
Yeah. That was one of the great openers of all time. It was another extraordinary reaction actually, because the camera followed Matthew the Pacifist Crosby, our roving reporter, backstage, where Rosie had a challenge that she was ready to issue. She said she was willing to challenge anyone, anytime, any place for her belt. At which point a masked figure walked in. He was disguised, except there aren't that many people who look like Greg Davies.
That's fair.
He was wearing a mask. The camera sort of pulled out, and then just sort of tilted up. And before he even turned to face the camera, the audience began to get a sense of who it was. Surely not. Is it him? I mean, it's got to be him. And he turned, pulled down his hood, and there he was, the Taskmaster himself. And yeah, it led directly to a match. And anything can happen at Clash of the Comics. Rosie defeated him. Yeah.
No small feat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, his feet were enormous.
Yeah, definitely no small feat.
I know that because we sourced him some wrestling boots.
Oh yeah, that earlier that day.
Oh god, yeah. Thank you to Rishi the Princeman by Ghosh for finding those.
I say, I imagine that's one of the bigger challenges.
Yeah. He was just in a locker room. He was like, "I'll just ask some people." He's like, "Yeah, there's a giant wrestler here," and he says, "I can borrow his boots."
Anyone got any size 23s?
I thought it wasn't going to be possible. He was like, "Yeah," he says he's got black, gold, or white. What? Okay. I love wrestling, man.
Nowhere else. So obviously, when you take a look, a step back and you look at what the show has become, with the venues, the talents, and the crowd reactions you're getting, I just want to ask, sort of, what are you most sort of proud of in bringing this whole concept to life?
Whoa. I think just the fact that we keep doing it and it keeps getting bigger. The Apollo is almost 3 times the size of the last one, which was our biggest. So, onwards from that, hopefully.
Yeah, it feels it. I think lots of the ideas, lots of the ideas that we get drawn to as shows and things, not just with the Clash of the Comics, but kind of across our career, are sort of things that it feels we can't possibly walk away from because they feel gripping and they feel they capture our imagination, and thus we're kind of confident that they'll do something similar out in the world. And Clash of the Comics is sort of, by some measure, the thing that has sort of captured our imaginations for the longest and most powerfully, and continues to sort of do that when we bring it into the world. And the fact that it feels like it's something different each time, it's a different challenge each time, but also it's sort of satisfying in a different way each time. We get to bring something new to the table. We get to bring new people to the ring. We get to kind of create something which feels like it's active and alive and growing. And for as long as that feels like it's the case, then we'd love to keep kind of pouring our hearts and souls into making it.
Yeah, I love that. Great answer. We'd be remiss if we didn't briefly touch on, obviously, Deep Heat for ITV2. What was it like kind of pulling that together, and how does that compare to putting on a live show?
It's a very good question. Obviously, it's totally informed by the world of British wrestling, and it was made with lots of love and affection for the world of some of the grottier promotions that I wrestled for back in the day. I mean, a totally different experience. You know, scripted TV is such a stop-start kind of thing, and it was a real an absolute credit to our production company and our director, Matt Lipsey, Slam Films and Matt Lipsey, who kind of went with us on this journey, because if you think it's weird explaining pro wrestling to comedians when they're just going to get in the ring and do it, try explaining it to like a TV producer with a checklist who's going, well, how many stunts are there in the show? And you have to go, well, it depends what you mean, either loads or alternatively like none, because we're not going to use stunt actors. So I don't know what box you're checking, but like they're going to get in and they're going to do it. And we took our director,
producer and fight coordinator to a wrestling school, and basically trained them, showed them what we were doing, and then only after that did they go, oh, I get it now. Okay, right. So the actors are going to do this for real.
They came. It started off. I'll say that day started off quite badly, because we took them to ringside, and then I got into the ring and I locked up with Cara Noir, and we did some chain wrestling, and everyone looked in total horror. I'm like, well, they're killing each other. This is completely. I'm like, okay, no, okay, right, stop. Change tactic. Would you care to step into the ring with us? Just feel what it's like to be in a wrestling ring, lean against the ropes, just exist in this, this space for a minute. And then why don't we look at a collar and elbow tie up, and just, we can all do that together. We can just kind of feel that. And then they started to learn that there is craft and artistry to it. And the fight director guy immediately began to relax, because he could sort of tell that this was not his area of expertise, but he was expert enough and secure in his own skills enough to go, okay, well, hold on, this is a thing. Like, these guys know what they're doing. I'm not going to get a load of my boys who, get professionally run over for a living. Like, this is a different kind of skill set. So it was absolutely mad. I feel very lucky to have made it, because it got commissioned just before COVID, and then as a sea of shows got decommissioned, we were able to, I'll say it, cling on. And we clinged or clung, I believe.
Yeah.
But yes, we got the chance to make it, and yeah, very, very, very grateful for it. Had a lovely cast joining us on the journey. It was a delight.
And they all grew to love wrestling as well.
Yeah, it happens. And again, we brought some wrestlers into the world.
Yeah,
it was great.
Yeah. I love it. Obviously, you mentioned the cast there. You also you had Mariah May starring in it as well, who's gone on to be sort of huge over in AEW. I just wondered what it was like working with her.
Yeah, Mariah is great. I mean, part of the thing that I think is wonderful about wrestling in general is it's a true kind of, well, it's not a true 3-ring circus, because there is normally just one ring. But you get what I'm saying. I'm putting myself up. You get an array of people who are extraordinary to witness, and we try to bring a little bit of that in. It certainly into every Clash of the Comics show that we do, but also in Deep Heat we wanted to kind of give you a cross section of the kind of larger than life personalities that you get, whether that's Little Legs, who's tiny but larger than life as a personality, to Bulk, who is larger than life in every sense of the word, to Mariah, who's this extraordinary wrestler, to Driller Maloney, who's now killing it in Japan. It was just, we wanted to kind of give and I remember saying it was the opening shot of the whole show. It was, God bless the man for doing it without a warm-up. Driller, I was like, the opening shot of the show, I would love it to be a professional wrestler who looks the absolute business, leaping off the top rope and missing a leg drop, and then we're off. And we want to film that in, beautiful 60 frames a second, like 8K. I want people to see from the start that there is real. It's not just a show where they talk about the wrestling that happens in the room next door and you never see it, like, as much as we could. And it was a uphill battle. But yeah, we wanted to kind of infuse it with as much love and sort of authenticity as we could. And yeah, they were all an absolute hoot to work with.
I tell you what, the crowd shots that we had, the extras that get bust in to watch this stuff, they loved it, because what we did was we ran the sequences from start to finish. We didn't just do one little bit and then go back or what have you. We just basically put on wrestling shows each time for the audience. And so all the reactions are genuine, because they're just going, "Oh my God, this is amazing. I get paid to watch this, because this is not what normally happens. They normally have to just stand in the rain, and also for 8 hours."
Shout out to all of our cast who just turned out to be like freak athletes who like over delivered above and beyond.
Yeah.
Al Petrie to Paul Olima, Richard Fleischman, Johanna James, they all, completely excelled themselves, and by like lesson 2 were performing all. They were all professional standard. It was glorious.
I love it. So before we do wrap things up, it is time for our Clash of the Comics quick fire conundrum. So we're going to ask you both a series of questions, and we're looking for some fast answers without any hesitations.
Okay.
You ready? Okay.
I know you've named the round as well. It's great.
Well,
Okay. So, who is the biggest heel in comedy?
It's got to be that bastard Nish Kumar.
Which comic has the
boy.
best promo?
The bad boy Nish Kumar.
Bad boy Nish Kumar.
Absolute scumbag. He's unfortunately on commentary, and I, for one, completely regret that he's been given a microphone.
I mean, the amount of times he's pushed over Rosie Jones.
It's disgusting. It's really disgusting.
Horrible behavior.
Truly awful human being. Yeah.
Okay. Which comic has the best promo?
Best promo.
I mean, I hate him from the bottom of my heart after the way he behaved, but Ed the Gambler Gamble electrified the Electric Ballroom.
He did cut a good one.
He knew what he was saying. I don't condone what he said, but I stand by his right to be very good at the way he said it.
Yeah, calling all the Progress Wrestling fans incels.
A bunch of incels saying it looked like the sequel to Adolescence. The smell of Lynx Java on an unwashed hoodie. It was poetry. It was very offensive.
And it was Mother's Day.
And it was Mother's Day, and he said it was the reason they were all there was because their mothers all disowned them at birth.
Wow.
But
Okay. That's a hell of a promo.
He had bars. The man had one-liners for days, but he stole the belt which rightfully belongs to Phil Kill Wang, and on October the 8th, I'm backing Phil all the way.
And you know what? Phil's line, "When the fun stops, stop."
Yeah.
The Gambler Gamble was.
Yeah. It's very tricky. He's a comedian. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
100%. Right. So who has surprised you the most with their wrestling ability?
Ooh.
I've already mentioned Angelos.
Yeah, and I've already mentioned the squadron leader Mike Wozniak.
Can I say myself?
This is like Matthew McConaughey at the Oscars when he says himself in 10 years' time.
Well, just I never expected myself to jump off a ladder from inside the ring to outside the ring, but I've done that.
I would also I concur with Ivan, who I once described to our head coach Dan the Hammerhead as weirdly athletic.
Yeah.
But if I'm giving a different answer, I would probably have to go with a little known performer by the name of Richard Gadd, who got into the ring and then promptly delivered a back somersault to his feet before beginning the match. He did not come to play. It was very, very impressive.
Yeah, very strong.
So I noticed James Acaster's not getting a shout out in the wrestling ability.
Not yet. Not yet.
I mean,
Well,
he has surprised me with his wrestling ability. I'll say that much is I've been constantly surprised.
Okay, if you could book any celebrity dead or alive, or any comics dead or alive, to step into the ring for Clash of the Comics, who would it be?
Just all of them alive.
Yeah, that would help.
Please.
Although
Yeah, we've
I
got a
still wouldn't
track
fancy
record.
James
Yeah, yeah.
Acaster's chances.
We're very proud of keeping all of our comics alive without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah.
God, don't let this haunt us.
No. Keep it safe. Who's top of the list?
Oh, top of the list.
There's so many. I realise we're slightly deviating from your quick fire concept here as we
to slow fire.
We label them quick fire, but the questions kind of aren't. I think they require a bit of thought, so we understand.
Long pensive silence. Who
do we?
So many.
Well, also, what I don't want to do is because we're still pursuing lots of comedians at the moment, so I don't want to name any of the ones that are on my list now.
Okay.
We need to name like dead comedians.
Okay. Yeah.
This segment took a bit of a turn.
Who we would bring back to life to wrestle.
So Buster
Keaton
would be an amazing pro wrestler, surely.
Yeah, Buster Keaton, and Harold Lloyd, two of the slapstick masters would be very strong.
Okay.
Yeah.
No
Slapstick
one
so
in the audience right now would know who they were.
We're revealing that we're not quite as Gen Z as we make ourselves. However, with your permission, we will chop that up and put it on our new TikTok channel. Just elderly comedy double act talk about who?
Love it. Right, so last one is, if WWE called you both tomorrow and said that they were bringing you in as a tag team, what gimmick would you pitch to them?
Well, I mean, maybe now is time to exclusively reveal that we are launching a brand new web series in the lead up to the show called On the Ropes, which is going to be on our new YouTube channel, which is also freshly minted out in the world. And in it, not only do we interview comedians, past, present, and future, who step into the world of Clash of the Comics in their Clash of the Comics persona, but part of that journey is Ivan has yet to find his gimmick. I've been Max Voltage, the Human Dynamo, for many years. Maybe it's time for me to do a Jericho and change it up, but it sits comfortably with me at the moment. Yeah. But Ivan doesn't quite know.
I just don't know, you guys.
So this is.
I need to find it.
I'll be honest. I'm desperately trying to keep it in theme with Voltage, but
it makes sense, right?
Yeah. Max Voltage and Ivan Wattage.
Really need to amp it up.
Ivan, what age?
Quality.
You could go down like the removals thing, like man with
39. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe a bit of infringement. Ivan Dam.
Yeah, I like
Ivan Dam.
Yeah.
I like it.
No, honestly. Go on, sorry.
Oh no, just still trying to figure it out. Yeah, the bald boy.
Yeah.
The bald boy.
Yeah.
He's had a few gigs over the years. There was a period when Ivan and I were feuding, and he was Ivan El Guapo Gonzalez.
Yeah.
A smoldering bad boy. He was trained by Yestin Reese that year, who was his terrifying, towering manager. But then we mended fences.
Yestin powerbombed me.
Yestin powerbombed Ivan very brutally. Extraordinary. Footage is genuinely upsetting.
It is.
It's The man was excited. But then Ivan has since wrestled as the tired dad, Ivan Gonzalez, which
came out with my baby.
Yeah, it's true.
That's so relatable as a character.
It is relatable. I won't say it electrified the crowd.
No.
It's just staggered to the ring and kind of gave it a go.
And then I think at the last one, it was just Max Voltage, the Human Dynamo, and Ivan.
Yeah.
So no, I think we need a bit more oomph for me.
So what you, I mean, yeah, you've unwittingly uncovered something deeper, which is it is a work in progress, and
we'll figure it out.
You know, we'd sit with creative in WWE, and we'd see what they had to offer. Ivan is very open to offers. So if anyone out there has any ideas for Ivan's gimmick, please do say the word.
If it means I don't have to think about it.
And just as a further plug, then, so you know, you'll be covering, among many other things, Ivan finding his gimmick on your new YouTube channel.
Yes, indeed. Yes, YouTube channel's launched. It's called we have a web series that we're launching called On the Ropes, where each week we will interview a brand new comedian. They'll step into the world of Clash of the Comics, and we'll interview them at ringside. And much more. We've got much more planned.
That's awesome. And we'll put a link in the description below.
Absolutely, we will. But honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. Can't wait to see what you've got in store for us at the Apollo on October 8th for Clash of the Comics. Before we let you go, just let everyone know how they can see the event and keep up to date with everything.
Please do buy tickets at clashofthecomics.co.uk and follow Clash of the Comics on all social media channels. And we're Max and Ivan. You can follow us on social media too. Why not?
Yeah, we don't post much, but
we're posting a lot. We're posting a lot about the show right now.
That's it.
Yeah, if you want to see some reposted Clash of the Comics posts on our grid, you know where to find them.
Awesome. No, thanks so much for the time.
Well, boys, thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
A to the K.
A to the K.